Yes, please, please. Okay, so yes, we'll begin with the structuring of SOP that I'll walk you through today. There's 6 major aspects that we need to always keep in mind while structuring an SOP. So we begin with an introduction. Normally, students mistake it for a self-introduction per se, like, "Hi, I'm Bhavika Wahi, and I will be I'm planning to study abroad in your university XYZ." But that is never how you should begin an SOP. Instead, it should begin with a reflection of the course that you're applying to, probably a personal anecdote. What I remember reading this wonderfully written SOP, Zani, where the student had described his journey from hating programming to eventually falling in love with it. He remembers how he went through a movie, Iron Man, which I'm sure a lot of us might have watched. He loved that movie. He was very amazed to see how artificial intelligence, was taking over the world of Marvel. And he beautifully explained that in his SOP. And that is when, he introduced himself that, okay, this is how I fell in love with this field, computer science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And that is why I want to pursue a master's in CS, because that is the love that I hold for this field. So starting with a personal anecdote is always suggested. However, you should never, in a lot of universities, do not recommend starting with a quote. That is something that's become really outdated in today's time.
It's become very cliche. I think all of us were taught by our teachers in school that you should start an essay with a quote. Oops, sorry, that, Mahatma Gandhi once said something, something. How many of you have done that? I know I did that in school. And if you've done it, immediately like 200 students have raised their hand. So yeah, all of us have done this. But like Bhavika mentioned, it's a very outdated way of starting an SOP now, or even an essay. So you should avoid it. But the example you mentioned was it catches the attention of the reader. So you should not start in a boring manner, right? Otherwise, the person who's reading your SOP will immediately get bored. So if you share an interesting personal story,
a personal story, yeah, exactly. Some anecdote that actually reflects how you fell in love with the field and precisely why you want to pursue a master's. So this is the introduction bit that we begin with. Never start by saying your name, your age, or whatever your credentials are. Then we move on to the program that you're planning to study. So because of this reason, the passion that I've developed over the years, this has led me to, pursue a degree in biotechnology or international relations or whatever field you're passionate about. So this is the introduction bit. It's usually a paragraph long, not longer than that, because we obviously don't want to bore the admissions committee. And then we move on to the next bit, which is the main body, the main crux of the recipe.
Yeah, I'll just change the slide.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, we've covered the introduction. Then is the body of the SOP. A body of the SOP fundamentally carries all of your academic profile. Then comes your academic downfalls and achievements, and whatever it is that you've done, whatever it is that you've studied over the years, that's made you really into the field. So a lot of students who study mathematics, if they wish to pursue a master's in mathematics, why is that? What is that particular subject that actually makes you enthusiastic and enthralled to study the domain? Similarly, it goes for other arts and science subjects. So what are the subjects that you feel are relevant to your master's might be a part of this academic paragraph. Here you can also mention some achievements. A lot of times students they bag a prize such as student of the year, or
or they've topped their batch.
Yeah, a good rank that they've achieved in their academic undergraduate journey. Do mention that, because that reflects upon your commitment to your academics. Then the second most question that I am asked a lot of times when I'm penning down an SOP is that, should I mention that I had a backlog? So this is something we'll be covering again in this webinar.
In this webinar, we will address it.
Yeah. But I mean, why not? You had a backlog probably because you had an emergency or some problem that led you to have a backlog, or to be as honest as I could be, you did not focus on your studies at that moment. So that led to a backlog. But being honest always pays you well during the SOP. Then comes in, Then comes in your extracurriculars, which is also a very essential part of your SOP, considering depending on the program that you're applying to. A lot of MS programs, they do not want your extracurricular details because they do not want to see your achievements outside of the classroom. While a lot of programs that are arts based, they want to see what you've achieved outside of the classroom, that you've not just been the studious sort of person, you have a very well-rounded personality. You are like an all-rounder, that is what they want to see. Now, what can we actually include in the extracurricular activities? It's a list that can go on and on, but that is when experts come into play and try to help you down. That okay, don't mention that you were a class monitor, in your fifth standard or something like that. So don't do that sort of stuff, and that is when you can reach out to somebody who can guide you, mentor you, take you through it. That
Your
what to
voice
mention.
just went.
Am I
now it's
audible?
back. Yeah. So you were saying that you have to be careful about which extracurriculars you mention in your SOP, right?
Yes, exactly. So that really helps, to jot down the essential bits that you're going to cover. You don't want to cover things that you feel are irrelevant. And you might feel that, okay, should I mention this? Shouldn't I mention this? You're confused. Reach out to somebody who's there to help you. Reach out to a guide, a mentor. That is one bit. Extracurriculars can also include sports. A lot of students ask me, should we mention that I played football during my school days or during my college days? Definitely mention it. If you've gone out for a tournament, mention that. Why not? It shows that you've developed some spirits of sportsmanship, teamwork. Those are the spirits that you inculcate out of a sport. So mention those activities that you feel have taken you to a certain extent of transformation.
Okay, but then Bhavika, again, like you mentioned, we should mention sports in the SOP only if the student has made it to some tournament at some level, right? Like,
Yeah,
I also play sports as a hobby. Is that something we should mention?
So if you play it as a hobby, have you ever gone out for a school tournament or a college tournament? If not, then probably you would want to avoid that, because the admissions committee might just reach out to you, or might find out from one way or the another that okay, this is just a hobby that this person hasn't specifically gone out to pursue it as a proper training or a sport or something like that. So hobbies should be avoided. That is what we recommend our students. That do not, there can be a list of hobbies. I like reading, I like traveling. All of those things that haven't, actually been a part of your non-scholastic activities should be avoided.
Got it. Just one small break I want to take. A lot of students are asking a lot of questions in Q&A. Please have some patience, because 90% of the questions you are asking, we are going to cover in this webinar anyway. We have made a very detailed PPT. We are going to cover all of those questions. So don't sort of crowd the Q&A box with your questions. Just wait and listen carefully. We are going to cover everything. So yeah, I think we can then move on to motives and goals.
Yes, definitely. I just want to also mention that we are going to keep it a very interactive session. We are going to take up a lot of doubts, questions.
Yeah, towards the end, we will be taking the questions.
Yes, we also be giving you verbal
Sit tight till the end, guys. Yeah, we will be taking questions.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay, then after you're done with your extracurriculars, you obviously want to pen down your work experience, which is a very, very essential part of your SOP, even if it is not related to the course that you're applying to. Even if it is sort of a, you're self-employed, you co-founded a startup, you work with a startup, or something as minute as, organizing something can be mentioned in the SOP, because once again, it shows a certain amount of skills that you've developed. So do not refrain from mentioning your professional experiences, because it's not related to your master's degree. Simply state that, okay, even though I haven't worked in this field per se, I am looking forward to, develop those skills through this master's degree. Dhwani, am I audible?
Yes, Bhavika, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought my internet got disconnected. Never mind. Yeah, so once you pen down your professional experiences, it is also important to include your professional achievements, that I was promoted twice in the span of 1 year. That is something huge. Why would you not want to show the admissions committee that? And that is something that you do not get a chance to reflect upon your in your resume. You can't show your promotions and your failures through a resume. Precisely why an SOP exists. So do mention your achievements, downfalls, even in your work experience. That is one thing. The next is once again a very, very important bit of the SOP, which is your motives, goals, visions, and objectives. So you might be very confused, okay, that everybody is doing an MBA. Should I also do an MBA? And probably that is why you've applied for an MBA program. But that is not an answer that the admissions committee is willing to hear from. They want to hear that, okay, they want to see that you really, really need an MBA. They need to be convinced, okay, that okay, the student is so much in need of this master's degree and he's bound to do wonderful things after the MBA program. So why not just give him that admission? So you need to very precisely mention your motives. Motives are something that you immediately want to do after a master's degree. So say you complete a 2-year program or a 3-year program or whatever, 1-year program, you have to plan something that you want to take up. It could be a particular designation that you're planning to take up. Say I want to work as a machine learning engineer after my master's degree. And it has to also be something that you see yourself doing 15, 20, or 10 years down the line. After you achieve the sort of a stability in your career, you don't want to be in that stagnant position forever. You might want to begin your own venture. You might want to establish something that helps the society as a whole. So do mention that as well, that both of these things, short and long-term goals, form the crux of your SOP. Without that, any form of SOP, be it be a 500-word SOP, a 1,000-word, or a 1,500-word SOP, it's always incomplete without your motives and goals. So that is extremely important, and a lot of students forget to mention it or do not pay much heed to it, which obviously reflects poorly upon their admissions. So please include your goals and motives very clearly. The next thing that we again have to keep in mind is the choice of the course. By this course, a lot of times I've seen students opting for business analytics just because it's trending right now. It's like the most highest paid, master's degree program that pays you extremely well after your completion of the program. So that is why a lot of students take that. But is that sufficient enough for somebody to hear it? Think of it as an interview, that you want to impress the interviewers and you want to get that job really badly, and that is why you want to pursue that course very desperately. So research into the course, research into the modules that the coursework is offering, research into the projects and research that you can take up after that particular project, after that particular course, because that's going to be really, really helpful. It's going to impress the committee, like 10 on 10 just for your coursework and your motives. You're good to go with the SOPs. Similarly, always research well into the university. Do not make this mistake of sending the same SOP to 10 different universities. That okay, I've drafted a file. This is my essay, and I'm going to apply to all universities from by submitting this essay, because that's a very, very huge blunder that you can make. Why? Because every university has a different USP. If, for example, you're planning to study at Stanford and you send in the same SOP to Harvard, it's going to reflect poorly for two reasons. Harvard has a very different coursework than Stanford. Harvard has a very different faculty than Stanford. It's located extremely in Boston and different parts of the world. So there's different USPs of each university. Be it be an Ivy League college, be it be a above average, below average college. Every college university has something to offer. So dig deeper into that. Find out the reasons. Okay, this university has this particular community to offer, this particular project work to offer. Some universities offer co-op programs, some do not.
Right,
So
right.
please just dig into that. Find out why you want to take up a particular university. The remaining things of your SOP can stay the same, of course, but you need to have a very different university specific paragraph.
Got it. So I think the big takeaway, Bhavika, we can say from this slide is that even if the top 3 sections remain the same, your university section can never be the same. The university will easily come to know that you have copy pasted it from some other SOP, and that will severely affect your chances of getting
Definitely.
accepted there.
Definitely. And that is why, we have like experts to help out students. Okay, that, this is the
Like
USP
you
of
and
this
Shruti.
particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is why we offer you admissions to this specific university, and your profile does not suit this university, and your SOP does not reflect well for particular XYZ university. So, definitely, that really helps,
Got it. That's super helpful. I think we can move on to the next slide now, right?
Yes, please.
I did ask a poll question to students, and
Okay.
so it seems that majority of our students are planning to go in September 2022. So should they start thinking about SOP now itself, or is it still too early, or what?
No, it's never too early for apply, abroad. It takes good amount of preparation. You have your GREs, GMATs, and other exams, and
IELTS,
between,
yeah.
exactly, between all of this, you tend to miss out on your SOP. We always tend to think, okay, it's just an essay. I'll complete it like in 1 day, 2 days.
Yeah,
But
everyone thinks I'll do it 1 week before the deadline.
exactly. Never ever like alter SOP till the end, because it will take n number of iterations. You will have to go through it 10 times, 20 times, even if like you will find a problem every time you read it. There might be a grammatical issue, there might be problem with the structuring, and there might be the same deadline for 5 universities. So how are you going to cope up with that? So definitely prepare well in advance.
So in your opinion, how many months or weeks should students set aside for SOP writing?
Well, like I would suggest they start 3 months before the deadline, the priority deadline. Yeah.
So hope everyone has noted that down. The deadline that your university has given you for submitting SOP, you must start 3 months before that deadline if you want to make sure that everything is done on time.
Exactly.
I'll just move on.
Yes.
Yeah.
What details should you reflect upon and share with your editor? I think Shruti will have a very good answer for this, because she's very accustomed to talking to students, having them, take out every minute and big detail that they have to offer. So yeah, over to Shruti.
Yeah, thank you, Bhavika.
Welcome.
So I often get asked, what makes your SOP unique? If so many students are going to apply for the same course, then ma'am, what should I mention differently in my SOP, and how should I make it stand apart? So every SOP should be unique, just the way you are. So when our editor gives you a call to know your details, so just answer all the things honestly and tell me all your story. Give us all the details that we need to know. I'll just give you one example. Let's consider I'm a content writer, obviously I am, and I wish to go abroad for the content writing related courses only. So I can introduce myself by saying, my name Shruti means one who listens. I've been trying to live up to my name in the recent past by being associated with LeapScholar, where my job was to listen to people's stories and help them craft a nice SOP. So in this way, I've introduced myself. The purpose of this sentence was not to tell the university about the meaning of my name, but I've connected my work experience with my name, and somehow it is relevant for the course that I'm applying. So this kind of introduction should be catchy. So this is something that every student can do. Even if you feel you don't have unique, everybody has some unique points with them.
This was a really good example, and this is exactly what Bhavika mentioned, that your introduction shouldn't be bland or boring. It should make the admissions officer want to know more about you.
So an admission officer goes through thousands of SOP every day. So why should they read your story? I mean, if it looks like random information put together, they won't be interested in reading it. Your SOP should look like your story. So that's where these points come into the picture. So the first point that we need you to inform us, exclusively, is about your academic and professional achievements. So before you start writing an SOP, it would be worthwhile if you could just list down all your certifications, your credentials, academic and professional achievements, and all the things, awards, rewards, recognition that you've got, and then think what all should appear on your SOP. Not everything needs to be there, but there are some points that we can definitely highlight. So just keep all these things at once and check which part should appear in your resume, and what are the things that I can definitely mention in my SOP. Yeah. And then I often get asked, ma'am, I don't have any academic achievements. My CGPA was not good. So in such cases, what should I mention? So in such cases, we can focus a bit more on the extracurricular activities, something that you are good at. And by professional achievements, what do I mean by professional achievements? You don't have to, win Employee of the Year award or anything, Star Performer of the Month, any awards like that. If your manager or your client praised you for something, you should definitely mention that in your SOP. This is a professional achievement.
Okay.
And even if you don't feel like I don't have anything to mention, but if you feel that I have contributed something to this particular project at my office, this is the thing that I've done, and this has impacted my entire work in a big way. Like if you did some coding, or if you came up with any solution that reduced any problem by 10% or increased productivity by 20%, so you can definitely quantify that in your SOP. This could be your professional achievements. Then focus on quantifying that. Don't just mention anything randomly. So that is the thing about your professional achievements. Now moving on to the third point, which is about future goals. So this is a point where you need to have clear articulation about your goals and interests. So I find a lot of times that students are very confused. What should I write about the future goals? I often say, whatever, let's say I'm going for this master's in computer science. They say, ma'am, just add typical career goal for any master's in computer science students. So that is not how it should work. So because everyone's career goal is completely different. So Dhwani, I'll give our students some number of questions that they can think of. If they want, they can note it down.
Guys, please note this down. This will be a good exercise for you to get to know yourself also better. So,
yeah, definitely. So the first question is, why do you want to do masters at first place? If you are next, we can move on to, if you are leaving your job to go for masters now, what is the reason that you want to do that master's degree now? And why this particular course? Is there any research interest of yours that you want to fulfill via this course? Or what kind of, what are the skills and knowledge that you wish to gain through this course? You can mention about that. And then you can mention what you expect after completion, after completing this particular course. So you can say that I want to join XYZ company at this particular designation, or I want to go for PhD if you are interested in research and academics, or if you want to have your own startup. And then you can mention, in the long term, I want to see myself at a leadership position in this particular MNC, or I want to climb up to the hierarchical position. So this could be your career goals. So just think about your short-term and long-term goals. Where do you see yourself in next 5 years, in next 20 years? What is your ultimate career goals? So be very precise when you draft your career goals, and do not refer to Google to, write this part specifically. If you just copy that, just look at your career goals part and we'll know that this has been copied. So it needs to be unique. Never copy anything from the internet or anywhere. You can definitely refer to that. You can take some inspiration. You can know the style of the writing style and understand a few things here and there, but don't get confused because there are so many things available on internet. Don't get messed up with that.
Got it. I think these are some really good points, and I have a bit of homework for everyone, all the 1,000 odd people who are here today. why don't you write down all of these things that Shruti has mentioned today for yourself? Even if you have not yet started applying, it's a good way to get to know what all are your own strengths and weaknesses. So when in the future you do start applying and you do start writing your SOPs, all of this information will hold you in good stead, right? So take this up as like a bit of homework for today. Tonight, sit down and write all the 4 things which are mentioned on this screen right now. Write them in bullet points for yourself. And yeah, then you yourself will have a clearer idea of why you're going abroad to do masters. Sit and ask yourself that question. The answer can't be that, oh, my parents said that's why, or everyone else is going, that's why I'm going. Even if that's the case, you can't really write that in your SOP. So yeah, how many of you are going to do this tonight? Just raise your hands while I move on to the next slide. Not a lot of students. Is this a lazy audience? We have a fair bit of students saying they will do this exercise tonight. So again, it's a really good exercise. All of you want to study abroad naturally. And if you're studying abroad, you need to know all of this about yourself. Yeah? Okay, awesome. Shruti, can I move on to the next slide?
No, let me finish the last point.
Sure. Sorry.
No worries. So one particular point, one paragraph where we mention why you've chosen this particular country for this particular course. You might be applying for UK and US, but make sure that this particular part of the SOP is changed. Why you are choosing that particular country. You cannot go ahead with the same thing mentioning in your SOP if you are going for different countries, different universities, as Bhavika told you already. So in this section, we can talk about the infrastructure that the country has or the facilities that this particular city has to provide. Then you can definitely clarify your goals to study in that particular country. I'll just give you an example. If someone is a fashion student, or if you want to study luxury brand management, and you've chosen Paris to be the city, so we can beautifully narrate a tale why a fashion student would like to study in Paris. It's so obvious. So here we can draft a nice story. We can draft a nice anecdote for this particular paragraph. And I have a tip for all our students who wish to draft their SOP by their own. So you can just note this down or highlight it somewhere.
Yeah, please note it down, guys. Also, a lot of people were saying that they can't hear. We are speaking a bit fast. So let's just repeat it twice, whatever you say now. Yeah.
Should I repeat from future goals itself or the country part?
No, you can repeat this, what you're saying.
I'm just sorry for this.
No worries. All the students who want to draft the SOP on their own, Shruti is giving you some tip. Yeah.
So the tip is SOP is written in a flow. There should be connecting points. So the last line of every paragraph can start a new paragraph. So there should be a link between these 2 paragraphs. It should not look like you put in random information. You can go, to have a nice flow, you can go chronologically or just have somehow the links in those paragraphs. So make sure that you do this thing. And I'll repeat the country part that I just said.
Actually, could you please repeat the few questions that you said students should answer?
Okay, sure.
Should write down. Yeah. Guys, this is for everyone who wanted it to be repeated. Please note it down now. Yeah.
So in the future goals part, just think why this degree is imperative for you. So answers could be different. If there is some research or research interest, or you want to go for PhD, so you can mention that point. Otherwise, you can talk about the skills and knowledge that you wish to gain through this particular program. And then why you've chosen this particular course. If there is, let's say, management has a wide variety of courses. You can go for MBA, you can go for Master's in MIM or anything. So why you've chosen this particular course, think about that and answer that honestly. And what do you want to do after completing this course? You can say, I want to join this company, or want to have my own business, or I want to do research. Whatever is your genuine interest, think of this as an interview question. So why do you want to do this particular thing? So you can just answer based on this short-term and long-term career goals for the future goals part specifically. And clearly articulate your goals and interests.
All right, so this is very useful. I hope everybody heard this time. And yeah,
I'll slow down. Don't worry. I'll slow down in the next.
No, or we can repeat the points which they are supposed to note down. We can just repeat it. Yeah.
Sure.
Guys, don't worry. We also will post about this on LinkedIn. After this session is over, a summary of this whole session will be posted on LinkedIn. Follow LeapScholar on LinkedIn to see that summary. And also you can comment on that post with what was your sort of favorite part of this session. Okay, let me just move on to the next slide.
Sure. And now I'm going to address your common doubts. So most of the questions that you've asked in the chat box will be answered here itself. So the first point is gap years and backlogs. If you have some backlogs, how should I justify that in my SOP? So it's okay if you took a break from your studies or your work. It could be any medical issue, financial issue, family problems, or you just took this break for sake of your mental health. Even we can justify everything. Or because of COVID, you could not get a job and you waited for this particular amount of time and then you got a job. So a lot of times I can see that there is a gap just because of this pandemic. So don't worry about that. And because admissions committee is not going to judge you just because you had any gap or backlogs, it's okay. So just specify what needs to be there is this justification for this backlog. Just specify how you overcame this backlog, why you had this backlog. As Bhavika said, you didn't have this interest in that particular subject. That's why you failed in that subject. You can honestly mention that. And then tell how you emerged successfully from this particular failure. So talking about failure is never a bad point in your SOP. It just shows how strong you are and how you've overcome those challenges. So don't be afraid of mentioning anything honestly. Mention everything honestly. So be honest. That is the key. Never lie. And don't copy someone else's SOP. That's the biggest request I have for all our students.
Got it. So, Shruti, you did mention about gap years and backlogs, and that was the number one question that we got from students in the last webinar. So I just want to again reiterate that, guys, you are not the only ones who have a gap year due to COVID. The whole world was facing COVID. So university will not look at you negatively because you couldn't find a job or you couldn't find an internship. Everyone faced that. So many people got laid off. What's important is for you to explain it well in your SOP, that what happened and why it happened, right? And that way you will be able to move ahead. Great. Maybe we can move on to change of stream, which is another
common
question. Yeah.
The frequently asked question is, I'm changing my stream and how should I justify that in my SOP? So for those of you who are stuck in this tricky situation of switching streams between undergrad and the master's course that you want to apply for, this SOP can help you make a strong case. So this is the benefit that you have. That is why a SOP is used. These are the things that you cannot justify in your resume or any other document. And here we can clarify all the things. So it's normal to change your stream. So you're not the only one. You're not alone. So you just need to justify why your career goals don't align with the stream that now you want to the stream that you had. Just for an example, a student who has done mechanical engineering in his undergrad now wants to study masters in computer science. So in such case, we can give the justification by stating that even during my engineering, I found C++, the computer related subjects more fascinating than machine related subjects. And then we can talk about the courses that he has done. Maybe he has done some Python certification course from Coursera, or has done some online courses related to data science, computers, or anything related to machine learning, any basic courses. So Coursera, Udemy courses, we can use those points to justify why you want to change this. And let's say this particular mechanical engineering student landed at an IT job, which is a common scenario in most of the cases. So you can say that when I got this job, I understood that IT was my cup of tea. I wanted to learn more about computers and do this particular things. And that's why I want to change my stream. So you just need to justify why you found that particular stream more fascinating than what you already have. That's it.
Got it. This is a good point. And Shruti, a lot of students in the Q&A box asked, can we mention certifications in the SOP? So is this what you were referring to, like Coursera, Udemy, if you've done any courses?
If it is relevant for the, let's say I have done something about body language, some certification course related to body language, but that is not relevant for the computer science course that I want to apply. So we won't mention that. But if you've done something related to basics of C, basics of artificial intelligence, anything like that, something that is relevant for the course that you want to apply. Don't mention any random things, random certifications in your SOP. But if you have something that can be connected to the course that you wish to apply, then definitely mention that. And specifically, when you change your stream, we need to have something. Either it could be your work experience, internship, or any personal story that inspired you to go for this. So justification is needed.
Got it. I think what does happen, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you're from a totally non-CS background, the university will be worried that can this student even cope up with the coding classes? That
So
will be their question.
In such cases, our counselors help students to shortlist the university which accept non-CS background students as well. So your counselor will take care of all these things, and when we get the university name for this particular course that they want to apply, it must be, I mean, counselor has made it sure that non-CS background student can also apply for that particular course. So that's when the role of counselor and the editor comes into the picture, and that's why we are there to help them out.
That's very true. Yeah, we are always here to help out. And just want to do a, pulse check with the audience. Some people seem to be leaving. Guys, are you still awake or have you fallen asleep? Please raise your hands if you're awake. And also, I will ask a question now. Are you someone who is changing their stream from undergrad to postgrad? Are you a student like that? If yes, please raise your hands. Are you changing your stream from undergrad to postgrad? Like, even if you're doing MBA, guys, it's a change of stream, because MBA, like if you've studied something else before that, it becomes a change of stream. Got it. So about, say, 1/3 of the students, 1/4 of the students want to change their stream.
Yeah.
Got it. So please mention it well in your SOP. Yeah, let's go on.
Yeah, and the last 2 points are about your medical issues and family background. So you don't have to mention like any sort of medical issues that has not affected your choice of course or affected your personality in a direct way. So I had a student who had some eyesight related condition. So we mentioned that point. Bhavika would Bhavika would explain it in a better way.
Yeah, so I recall this one student who had a impairment with her eyes. She was losing vision as she was growing up, but despite that, she excelled in her academics. So this is one thing that she was very nervous to mention, that okay, I'll be needing help while I'm pursuing my master's. So should I mention this thing? And I was like, yes, you've excelled right from your first standard up till your third year of your undergrad degree, and you've continuously only grown. You've never fallen back. So why not take it as an advantage that despite this thing, I have been an excellent #1 student, and even though I required help at certain stages of my career, of my academic pursuits, I have been very committed to them, and I have wonderfully achieved what I have always wanted to achieve. So this will not be a problem in my future as well. It will only require minor aid here and there, but I'll be good to go.
So this is if you are confused about mentioning your medical issues and how should I present it, that it should look like an obstacle that I overcame, that's when the role of an editor comes into the picture, and that's why we help you out. And the last point is family background. If you don't have some family background, should be mentioned only when you have someone like your role model, someone who really inspired you to go for that particular course. If you feel something is worth mentioning about your family, then just mention that. Otherwise, don't say random things like my dad works here, my mom is a housewife, or my mom works here, my cousin is working there. Not all these random things are needed. If somebody has served as your role model for that particular course and someone is from the same background, so you can mention that. Otherwise, don't mention about your family background. This is not a mandatory point to have in your SOP. Like all these 4 points, it depends on student to student. If they have something to mention that, mention it. Otherwise, you can drop it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is not like a school introduction that, oh, my mom's a housewife, my dad's a businessman. We don't have to mention all of that. So this is for a grown-up master's application or undergrad application.
Yeah.
So like
And
family
for
background.
SOP, there's never like one size fits for all. Everyone's SOP is unique and not every point needs to be there. These are the common doubts point. It's not mandatory to have in your SOP. It just depends. What points we covered earlier, those are the points that must be there in your SOP.
Got it. Yeah. Yep. So of course, only if you have a gap year or a backlog, you should mention it. Otherwise, you should not be mentioning it. Yeah.
And talking about gap, anything which is more than 6 months gap. If anything is less than for 6 months, you don't need to, it is not counted as gap and you don't even need to justify. If you took a break which is more than 6 months, then only we need to justify that.
Yep, this is helpful because many people who maybe lost their jobs due to COVID, they were out of work for a few months before they found the next job. So they need not mention it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Shruti. Should I move on to the next point? And of course, the underlying message is be honest. Don't lie in your SOP at all. They will find out. And it's possible they won't find out, but if they do find out, there is no way you will ever get admission at that university if they come to know that you applied. So yeah, just move on to the next. Yeah, things to avoid. I think this is more important than what to write, what not to write.
Yeah, so thanks, Vani. Like, never plagiarize your content. I mean, that's the worst thing that one could do to their SOPs, because a lot of students, they take information from here and there and just put it together for the sake of it, because they do not think that an SOP is going to be a valuable, instrument of their application. But I would just like to remind everybody that it is as important as your transcript, as your bachelor's degree, as important as the LORs and the resume files that you send to your university. Because do not think of it as something that's optional as well, because it gives you a very good chance to discuss, to pen down your story, the story like that you've been building from since day one. So use the chance well. That is one thing I would like to suggest here. So yes, things to avoid. This is also extremely crucial, because we tend to mention a lot of things that are not required, not relevant, and even though they've impacted us personally, emotionally, mentally, we tend to mention them in the SOP, considering that, okay, the admissions committee might have a good impact of this. So first of all, it's your test scores, TOEFL, IELTS, GMAT, GRE. There's no need to mention those scores in your SOP, because the committee is anyway going to receive those scores from your end. So why, send them the same thing again? And what are we trying to show from these scores? These are the tests that are mandatory for almost all of the students, most of the programs and countries. So why mention that specifically? The next thing that I've already stated is like a common SOP. Please just like never send in the same SOP. We're always there to help you, like Dhwani and Shruti told me. Like, if you need some help, you are not able to figure out, okay, I have a deadline coming up and I need to send the SOP to 5 universities. How do I customize it as per the university requirement? Because they might have different word limits. They might have different formatting, criteria for the SOP. So reach out to us. We'll help you with that. And do not just blatantly close your eyes and send it to the same universities. Family situations. This is something that can be very emotional to a student that they hold very dear to their hearts, but that is something that might not have been showcased in their academic and professional journey. I remember one encounter that Shruti and I were just discussing a few days back. There was a student who had lost both of her parents due to COVID. And because of that, she had to take a huge break in like a year and a half long break in her academics and professional career, and she was out of a job, and she was very scared of mentioning that. But since it reflected in form of a break, it had you take a break from your academics or your professional experience, mention that. But if it is something that you feel is not going to be relevant, like when I was in this particular year of my college, my mother was not well. She was not keeping well. So should I mention this? Why would you mention that if it has not reflected in form of a backlog or a year loss? Do not mention that then there. So this is how people can help you figure out, okay, this is something that can be mentioned about the family, and this is something that about the family you should never mention in the SOP. The next thing that we go to is slang and jargon. So I've come across some SOPs, students are like, my undergraduate degree was awesome and I was rocking it all this while because I scored 9 CGPA and all. And I'm like, you can't write that in your SOP because that's something very professional. You're trying to reach out to an admissions committee, people who PhD hold 20 years of experience, and you can't just start off with like awesome and cool and rocking. Avoid slangs, avoid jargons. Just to decorate our SOPs, we take up a lot of synonyms in the essay. I used to do that in school. I used to do that. Like that was a big blunder I was making, take up synonyms from the dictionary and use that in place of one word or another word. So doesn't make sense. Be as simple, as crisp and concise that you can be. Having a crisp SOP, having a concise to the point SOP really pays you, because you're not just writing for the sake of writing, that I have to complete in 1,000 words. So I will repeat one and the same thing throughout the SOP. Don't do that. Be crisp. If you feel something is being repeated, avoid that. The next thing is extensive details. So we come across so many students who've taken up like numerous projects throughout their academic journeys. Somebody from say biotech, or somebody from say English honors literature. They've taken numerous research papers and assignments, and they want to mention each and every detail of all those assignments. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. You'd simply be making it monotonous for the admissions committee, that you're giving detail about every simple thing. You just need to focus more on the learnings. What have you learned out of those projects and assignments, and how have those learnings driven you towards something that's known as higher education? Those learnings form the essential bit of your projects rather than the role you played during this. Focus on the role. If you were a team leader, if you were the representative of a team, you took your team to a paper presentation or got a paper published in a good journal, reputed journal, do mention that. But do not mention that this was done by this, through Java, I programmed this particular website, and through, machine learning models, I developed this. They're not interested to know that. They're interested to know what have you learned and how have those learnings been the source of your interest towards a master's program. The next point is financial details. Many times students also make it a point to convince the universities that I have a very good financial backing and I can afford to study abroad. But that's not relevant. Why? Because they're not the visa officers who are going to be reading it. Okay, the student has money, so let's send him abroad, or the student has a good loan secured, let's send her abroad. That's not the case. They do not want to know how are you going to, plan your financial backing for your degree. They are not interested in what your parents do, what your siblings do. They're only interested in what you want to do through this degree. So that is one thing that you always have to keep in mind. Avoid putting in financial details. Jargons are another thing. The most important thing, Dhwani and Shruti, who both very well stressed, that should be avoiding plagiarism. Copying, pasting is a big no-no for any, be it a SOP, be it be a visa SOP, any form of essay, diversity essay, personal statement. Never copy and paste. They'll find out, and if they find out, you might not just lose onto a seat, but you might also lose onto the entire opportunity of studying abroad. So don't do that.
don't plagiarize. I have seen incidents of students losing out myself. The school that I went to, a couple of people from there applied to study in an undergrad course abroad, and all of them wrote a very similar SOP. So, of course, because they applied to the college came to know, and they almost blacklisted the school over that. So, just don't do that to yourself if the university finds out. And also, in foreign countries, plagiarism is seen as a very serious offense. Even in your assignments that you do in the college or the essays that you write, it's considered a very serious offense. So, like if you show that you are already plagiarizing in your SOP, they will think you are not fit to study in their college at all. So yeah, don't do that to yourself. There are many resources that you can take inspiration from, but copying never a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
you
hope
can
these.
definitely,
Mhm.
yeah, you can definitely like read on 10s and 20s of SOPs to, get a good idea of what you want to write. But taking and stealing somebody else's idea and putting it across as yours is something that's not ethical as well. So might as well avoid doing that. And like you said, that the whole university, the school was blacklisted for further admissions. I've witnessed that. I've seen that happening a lot of times. So please just avoid, and also avoid lying, like, the positions that you've held. Okay. You might have got a promotion, but what if you were not the vice president of your college's cultural committee and four of you send in the same SOP, the same titles, the same designation to to same universities, and they find out, okay, these students are from the same college and they held the same position in the same year. How funny is that going to look like?
Yeah, lying is also a big no-no. Lying
Exactly.
and copying, it catches up with you in life. So don't lie. And you don't have to make things up that, oh, I achieved this or I achieved that. The editors will find enough in your actual real profile to put in your SOP. So you don't have to make up details that are not true. Yep,
Yeah, we can
absolutely
probably,
makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
move
we'll
on to
move
More
on to
the,
the next
points.
slide.
yeah.
Yeah,
Few more
awesome.
points I would like to add, Dhwani, here.
Sure.
So, your SOP should not look like a copy of your resume. It is something that you can easily avoid. It should not be the paragraph version of your resume. And someone has asked in the chat, should I color my SOP? So, answer is
No.
definitely no. Never color. Don't use fancy fonts for that. And one more question I have in the chat box. It's about someone has mentioned financial details and IELTS score. So that is the case with visa SOP. Never get confused with visa SOP and academic SOP. Here we are specifically talking about academic SOP, and a lot of points from the academic SOP are relevant for visa SOP as well, but it's different. So we never mention your IELTS score and financial details in the academic SOP. Just take a note of that.
Right, right. I did see the question as well. Visa SOP is very different from academic SOP. You can think of it this way: with an academic SOP, you're convincing the university that you are a good student for them. And with visa SOP, you're convincing that country that you should be let into that country to study, right? That you will follow all their rules and laws and you will be a good sort of temporary citizen. So the goal is very different for both of them. Don't mix them up. Yeah. One point I want to add here is I know that our editors have said that you shouldn't mention your GRE score in your SOP, but it is a very important component of your application. So you have to focus on GRE as well. If you're someone who's going to write their GRE soon or who's already booked their GRE, we have a webinar coming up this Sunday with a student who scored 331 in their GRE. And that student is going to share some tips and tricks that worked for him so that you can also sort of step up your GRE preparation. The link for that webinar is in the chat box. It's a free webinar. Please join us this Sunday to get tips and tricks on cracking the GRE in your first attempt. Yeah, that student scored 331 in his first attempt with self-study. So it will be a great session for all of you to learn. And yeah, I'll just move on to the next slide.
Yes. Okay. Questions that have been asked by you people that we've been getting like for a very long time. What if I don't have a work experience? What if I'm self-employed? What if, Should I mention that I intend to stay in the same country after my master's degree? So, like Dhwani stated, a visa SOP is very different from your university specific SOP. Precisely, also why? Because visa officers, they're looking to see if you're planning to come back to your own country or not. And that is something that you should never mention, that after masters I want to work in the UK or in Canada or in the US. That is something you entirely would want to avoid. Say that you, even if it's a lie, we all like, even if you have plans of working there or getting a PR there, do not state that very explicitly in the SOP. Okay, so no work experience. Okay, if you don't have any work experience, what you can focus is internships, extracurriculars, academic achievements, and downfalls, and emphasizing on the downfalls again and again, because they make you who you are. So there is no harm mentioning that. It's as similar to, as in, it might not take you to greater heights someday, but it will build you, give you those qualities that will take you to greater heights. So focus on the internships that you've taken up, focus on some workshops and seminars that you have attended that are relevant to the course. If you have nothing else to say, take up a coursework and mention that, I've taken up this online course from Coursera or edX or wherever, and it's very aligned with the master's program that I'm planning to take. So that will show that, okay, even if you don't have those experiences, that sort of diversity in your resume, you still have a keen interest to build upon those skills. So do mention your extracurriculars, activities, and other bits. The next point is formatting. Formatting is something that, even a lot of people who've gotten admission do not actually know that which university, which country accepts what sort of formatting. So once again, people are there to help you out with that. You have experts, you have guides, you have editors who will precisely know which university accepts a Times New Roman font and which university accepts Calibri. These are the most accepted fonts. The size can be anywhere between 11 to 12. The spacing is very specifically, written on the university's website, that we want a double spaced SOP or a single spaced SOP, or it should either be a 2-page SOP or a single page SOP. So those are the details that are very explicitly mentioned on the university's websites. If you don't find them, you can seek our help for that. We know which country, which university takes up, accepts what formatting. So yeah, it always varies, once again, university to university. The next thing is business and self-employment. What I fail to understand is that why are people afraid of, bringing something that they have built upon by themselves? It shows a lot of ability to, takes a lot of guts, first of all, to, venture your own startup at a very young age. You're probably in your mid-20s and you're beginning a startup. And that's the biggest achievement that one can have in their profile, that I co-founded or founded this particular startup. Because it will not just show your leadership and management, it will show how you've overcome numerous challenges throughout your journey. And despite having something as, huge as a startup, you're still interested in academics. That is a very good point to mention. So business startups, or, own business, parents' business, or self-employment, never try to avoid that. Always and always mention that, even if it's not relevant to the program. You might have a chain of, restaurants in the city or a small cafe, and you might be applying to a degree in finance, and you will think, how is that relevant? It's relevant because it shows that you took care of the accounts of your cafe all by yourself. You were there to take care of those numerical aspects of the cafe. So do mention that. Another point is extracurriculars. So what to focus and what not to focus in the extracurricular bit is a very, tricky area. Should I mention about my role as a president of some committee? Definitely, it's a huge role. You might have built upon a lot of skills to take up that role. You must have gone through a lot of sort of, say election or something, and you were elected amongst those representatives to be the president. Mention that. Should I mention that I was a dancer in my school, but I left that hobby after my schooling? If you took part in certain events at a school, college, or district, state, national level, definitely that shows the ability to go out and face a large number of audience. So definitely mention that. But a hobby like traveling and trekking, if you're not applying to say hotel management and other relevant areas, do not mention that, because how is that relevant to a master's degree that you like trekking? So it's a tricky area to take note of, but you have to jot down, you have to streamline what is there to be mentioned and what's there not to be mentioned.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. I think people often confuse hobbies and extracurricular activities. They are not the same thing. And you should mention your extracurricular activities, not your hobbies. Yeah.
Exactly. Hobbies are something you do inside a closed room, or go out
In
for
your
a
free
morning
time.
walk.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not a part of something that's curriculum that has a whole curriculum assigned to it. So yeah, do not mention such hobbies. And if you have a hobby that's led you to a very big achievement, definitely, why not?
Like if photography is your hobby and some of your work was exhibited in some really great gallery, that's an achievement, of course.
Exactly.
But mentioning that I take photos in my free time doesn't add much value to your SOP.
Yeah, because I've seen students who are shifting streams, what they do is they entirely focus their SOP on their extracurriculars. They fail to mention why are the shifting streams. So that is something that can be a very huge mistake from the student's end. That, okay, since I'm shifting streams, I think I'll fill in the words by putting in my extracurriculars. Don't do that. Try to avoid that as much as possible.
Got it. Makes sense. This has
I
been
have
very
a idea
helpful.
to share. Vinny, I would like to say something. So let's say you are a good dancer and you've done research about that particular university, and you see that this university has a dance club that you could be a part of. So rather than just saying that dancing is my hobby, you can say that I would be happy to be a part of your this dance club or this drama club. I could contribute to this student committee or anything. So do your research about the university, and then you can club these 2 points: your hobbies and what university needs. The university will also be looking for student with diverse background. So just combine that thing, and if you feel something is irrelevant, then you can leave that point. And also, how do you research about the university? A lot of times
very big question.
So you'll find all the details on their website. Just go dig deeper and you'll know. But in some cases, if you are not able to do research about the university, if you are not aware about their course curriculum, then you can get in touch with your counselors or the editors. So where we'll do the research and we'll tell you if this point suits you or not, then we can mention that in your SOP. Otherwise, leave it. So do a thorough research about your course curriculum and the committees that the university has to offer, the facilities that they have to offer, and see what suits you the best.
Yeah, and they can also mention some alumni, of that particular university. Like Justin Trudeau was a pass out of University of British Columbia. So that's a huge reason for one to pursue a similar course in that university. So search on the university, like Shruti said, take up good pointers, dig deeper about their committees that match your hobbies. That's a good thing to mention.
Got it. Yeah. Combine your research of the university with your own profile. Yeah, that's a short way to write a winning SOP. Yeah, this was super helpful, Shruti and Bhavika. We'll just take some questions from the audience now since we have been waiting. I could pick up some of the questions which a lot of people are asking. And yeah, this one question by Tejas Salian, which I'm sure many people have in their mind. Can low GPA be compensated for by a strong SOP?
Definitely. I mean, a low GPA is something that's not uncommon. It's a common practice to, have a low GPA because you might be changing streams. So that is one reason for you to change the stream. That's a very good reflection of why you want to change the stream. And you can also explain the reason that you had a low GPA. You might simply mention that, 2.89 was my GPA out of 4 in your resume, but the SOP gives you the chance to explain why was it not 3.5 even though you're completely competent enough to score that. Why? Because you had a medical emergency. Don't be afraid to, say the truth. You might have had a medical emergency. You might be in the middle of shifting cities when that backlog or that GPA thing happened, or you might be taking up your own startup that's related to the master's degree. So that will fill in the gap. Since you work towards the startup, you did not have enough time to focus on your academics. And now that your startup has been established, you are ready to take up a master's degree. So you can definitely compensate low GPA through a SOP.
Got it. So I hope that answers Tejas's question. Then we also have some questions from Shatakshi, Sharwari. Many of other people are also asking, what about NGO volunteering? Should we mention that in our SOP?
NGO volunteers. Yeah,
yes, if you are associated with some social cause, something that you are very close to and you really worked for it, then definitely mention that. And this could be a part of, it's a way to showcase that you are concerned about the issues that our society is facing. So mention about your NGO activities and tell what changes you could bring via those NGO activities. Don't just say that I've conducted tree plantation drives. No, it's not relevant. If you are associated with any cause, if you feel strongly about it, then we should definitely go about it.
Got it. You can definitely mention it. Again, it has to be relevant and talk more about the impact that you made rather than just I did X thing or I did Y thing. Yeah, that makes sense. We have many people asking, what do we have to show proof? Like Shazil is asking this. Do we have to show proof in our SOP that if you mention I was the whatever president in my college, do you have to attach that certificate as proof?
No, you definitely do not have to attach that certificate, but be well prepared that the university, your recommenders can mention that in your LORs. That's something to justify that, okay, the student is not lying. So supposedly you took up the role of a vice president for the editing society of your college. You can mention that in your SOP and in your LOR because they'll go hand in hand, and that will serve as the proof of your that you're not telling a lie. But this is something that a lot of students ask because they have not particularly, taken up that activity. They've just surfaced through it and touched it merely, and they want to mention that. So yeah, if you're honest, you have nothing to worry. They will not ask you for a proof, but avoid putting in a lie there and saying something that your friend did. And since my friend wrote it down in their SOP, I also want to mention it. Avoid that, and no need of a proof for extracurriculars.
Got it. Makes sense. I hope that answers the question. I'll take up one more question by Arya Agni. She asks, can we use phrases in our SOP?
Can we use
phrases or like idioms and all in our SOP?
Yes, definitely. Our editing team does that a lot of times. If a phrase and idiom fits well, why not? Like, there's no harm taking that up.
So, got it. And okay, let me just pick up one more question. People are asking what exactly is considered as a change of stream. Like, what if someone has studied a bachelor's in a different course, but their work experience is in the same field in which they are going to do their master's? Like, for example, I pursued economics in my bachelor's degree. In my work, I do marketing. So if I go on and pursue a master's in marketing, do I still have to justify as a change of stream if my work experience was totally in, the master's field itself?
Shruti, do you want to take this up or?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it up. So there is no particular section which has the heading like I'm changing my field, change of field. So you just have to tell what you did in undergrad. Don't focus more on that part. Focus more on your work experience. Tell the particular incident that you realized that I want to upgrade my skill set in the marketing domain. this is the particular incident that made me realize that I don't have this skill set to, to cope up with this breakneck efficiency of this market. So that's why I want to go for this course. Don't focus more on undergrad. There's nothing like change and you have to show the transition clearly. You could just club it in between the paragraphs and just justify your story. That's it.
I'd like to add something here.
Sorry, yeah, go on.
Yeah, so if you've changed something from bachelor's to your work experience, a single line, there that I was not finding my undergraduate degree to be well aligned with my future goals. And that is why I took up an opportunity in the marketing industry, and basis on my skill set, I found that opportunity. That also shows that you have some foundation in the marketing domain well built for yourself.
Got it. I hope that answers the questions of the students. Yeah, a lot of people are asking this only. Is it considered a change in stream? So there is no such sort of like Shruti mentioned. You don't have to force fit that, hello, I changed my stream. It's not absolutely like a section in your SOP. You just have to say that this is what I have done, this is what I'm doing now, and this is what I want to do in the future, and connect the three things together.
Your SOP is essentially a connecting link between the past and your future. Just keep that in mind. There is no specific sections or no typical format. There's nothing like that. You just need to justify everything. Why you are the best candidate for this particular university for this particular course. Just justify that. That is enough.
Got it. So I think we have answered most of the questions. I'm looking for can we mention specific sources of inspirations like books? Romit is asking if a book has inspired him.
Sorry, what? I did not get you.
Can we mention specific sources of inspiration like books?
Books, yeah. Of course, if something's inspired you, be it a living thing or a non-living thing, you can definitely mention that. A lot of students applying for, say, electrical engineering take their inspiration from the likes of, Nikola Tesla and other people, Thomas Edison for that matter. Similarly, they have the works of Newton might inspire somebody in the future. The works of Anita Desai might inspire feminists. So yeah, why not? If something that's there in a book that's by a respected, well-reputed person, why not?
Got it. What about part-time work or internships that you have done during undergraduate, like during your degree?
Definitely mention that. It's a plus point that any student has. So even if it is not in the same domain, but if you've done some part-time job, it shows that you want to take some efforts for the things that you do. So just mention that. And some colleges has this option to choose between internship and the final year project. If you've taken that internship, then focus on that. Or if you've done some technical project, you are going for any technical stream, mention about that. Or if you are switching your field, if somebody has done EC engineering, but they had internship in the marketing domain and now want to go for marketing, then don't talk about your academic projects more. Just talk about this internship experience and give personal anecdotes. Give incidents that inspired you to go for this field. And having beautiful examples, beautiful anecdotes will only enhance your SOP and make it stand apart. Because the experiences that you've had not might be the case for everyone, right? So just mention your anecdotes.
Got it. Personal anecdotes is like the best way to write your SOP. Got it. Awesome. I'll take up one final question as we are nearing the end. And this is also, again, a very commonly asked question. Rathina has asked it. Paris has asked it. And many people have asked it. These are people who are going to do a second master's degree. So have you helped with SOP for such students, and how should they go about it? Any tips for them?
So first of all, shortlist those universities that accept a second master's. You know, in this case, counselors will be of great help because a lot of universities in Canada, as I know right now, do not accept a second master's. So research well into which universities accept that. And if they accept the second master's, two things to keep in mind. If it's aligned with your future goals, you can simply focus more on the fact that you want to study in an international environment, that you want to gain some global exposure, which you could not gain in your home country. And that is why you're going for a second master's. And if it does not align with the master's that you are applying to, you have a very good reason to say that, okay, I did take up a second master's, but despite of that, I have not been able to focus well on my, professional timeline because it is not aligned with my goals. So do keep these things in mind that if it's a second master's in the same course, global exposure is a key factor that you're going for. So make sure you mention that.
Got it, got it. So I hope that answers the major question that many people had. So yeah, I think we can wrap up the session now since we've been doing it for a while. But I just wanted to say thank you so much, Shruti and Bhavika, for taking out time and sharing so many relevant tips for the students. To all the students, I want to say sign up to LeapScholar if you haven't already. If you are facing issues, please email our customer support team. And also this Sunday, we have an event about GRE. A student who has scored 331 himself will be sharing tips and tricks. Do sign up for that. And again, just want to say thank you so much to Shruti and Bhavika. We will be sharing this with, we will be sharing this PPT for this and the previous session that we did with the students who have stayed till the end. Please share your feedback with us also. And yeah, share your feedback with us over email. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
And
for
comment on
the
LinkedIn. Yeah, sorry, just last thing, comment on LinkedIn. We will be posting a summary of the session on LinkedIn. So make sure you go to our LinkedIn. Yeah, as you can see, all the students are thanking you all.
Yeah, it was it was great for both of us to, be of help. And in case any student needs any sort of help, we have Shruti who will help you drain out every piece of information that you need for the SOP. We have a good team of editors that will put in all their blood and sweat to form a crisp, personalized, and beautiful SOP for you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. I will keep this webinar running for some time because we will share all the links in the chat. So if any of you don't have, if you haven't copy pasted it yet, please do it. My colleague will be sharing it on chat. And yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, Shruti. Thanks, Bhavika. Have a great week ahead.
Thank you.
Goodbye.